Hello there, and welcome to another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. My name is Chrissy Morgan, and today I am with the president of the Symmes Historical Society, Mr. C.J. Carr, in Symmes Township, just north of Cincinnati in Ohio. Welcome. How are you doing today, C.J.?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for inviting us to explore the Ross family log house. Tell me, how did the Ross family log house get here?
Well, it started a few years back that when this property was being purchased for development of a new house, part of the deconstruction of the inside, the drywall and the plaster that was in the house and the siding on the exterior revealed the logs that were underneath it. Oh. A little bit more looking into things, found out that it was a log structure. We were able to find the year that it was built, pretty close to, and who built it, and things kind of went from there then.
So it was located, you were mentioning it might have been on your property?
It was located in Symmes Township, Hamilton County, basically the northeast corner of Hamilton County. This structure sat on a 65-acre tract of land. It was from the north Hamilton County line, ran to the south from the Rich Road all the way to the Little Miami River. So 65 acres of a little bit of farming area, mostly wooded, good for hunting, fishing, things like that.
And then it was moved piece by piece.
Right. In 2004, we dismantled the structure, and the easiest way to describe it is playing with Lincoln logs, like when you were a kid. The only difference was instead of picking up each log hand by hand, one log at a time, we brought a crane in and actually lifted the logs out of place, set them on a trailer, and then moved them to storage until we could reconstruct it here on this site.
Fascinating. You would never know walking past that this was at a different location and had moved here. Tell me a little bit about the history of the Ross family, if you could.
John Ross was the builder of this log house. He raised 7 children in here, so it was him and his wife and his 7 children. Today, 9 people in a house would be a quite large house, and you see that this is a smaller structure. Back then, though, a lot of their time was spent outside. They had chores to do, they had firewood to gather, food to make, farming to do. So there wasn't much time spent inside the house back then. So it was cold in the winters upstairs. There's a stone fireplace that was the only heat source for the structure. In the summertime, it was quite warm. The front door and back door are directly across from each other, which gives for good cross ventilation of air. And there's also multiple windows in this log house, so the windows could be open to let any air that could be passed through, let it pass through. Winter time, sleeping area was on the second floor, and that would have been quite cold. The heat would have just radiated up through the floorboards, but there really was no permanent heat in the second floor, no fireplace. Everything came up from the first floor.
The fireplace is really interesting. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the fireplace is actually an interior fireplace. A lot of the log cabins and log homes back then, the fireplace was actually built on the exterior of the structure. The main purpose for that was in case of a fire. Chimney fires were common back then. The structure's made of wood. Wood burns very easily. With the fireplace chimney being built on the outside, it was easy to knock the fireplace away from the structure in case of a chimney fire. That way keeping the structure from catching on fire. This one, like I said, is an interior fireplace. The first 4 feet of it is built with stone, basically river rock. Stone was really accessible on this site with the river being right down over the hill. And then the upper portion of the fireplace was built out of handmade clay bricks. And then originally it was stuccoed over with a whitewash just to make it all the same color, but we've left the brick exposed in here.
Part of moving the actual house from one location to another, I'm sure you found things while deconstructing?
While taking apart behind the walls, what had happened was over the years, as time went along, people had updated the interior and exterior just like you would on your home today. Drywall was installed on the inside, electric wiring, the walls were studded. And as we were taking down drywall, removing the stairs, taking up the floorboards, there were remnants of old baby doll pieces, different glassware that had been broken, some just pieces of paper from school days that had slidden between a gap in the floor, ended up in a wall, things like that. So we have on display a few of the items that were actually found when we were taking everything apart inside.
Which you would have never known it even existed, even if you exposed it as the log house, you would have never known these were there.
Right.
Unless you had went through the process of deconstructing and reconstructing.
Right, and taking the time as it was taken apart.
Was it, when the log house was on the original property, did it look like a log house when you walked on by?
No, it actually looked like really any other house of the time. It had wood siding, had a shingled roof, windows, just like you'd see today of an older type house. The reasoning behind that was originally they would build the log homes just like you see behind us here with the logs exposed. As soon as the family had enough money, they would cover the exterior of the structure with some type of wood siding. And what that did was actually encapsulated the structure behind that to preserve the building itself. So today now, 200 years later almost, when we uncover these structures, they look almost as good as the day that it was built in 1830.
Right. Wow. I heard, we were talking earlier and you had mentioned that you work in construction. Can you tell me a little bit about the construction of this building? The roof, the ceiling specifically.
Yeah, these are all logs that were cut on the property. They were all milled by hand. You can see the axe marks in all the different logs on the exterior and also the wood floor beams.
So those lines in the logs are axe marks?
Axe marks from where they actually chop by chop, squared up the logs and flattened them out. I kind of joke a little bit. There is one log upstairs that is still pretty much rounded on the inside. It still has the bark on it from when they cut the tree back in the 1830s. And I kind of joked that they got a little tired when they got to that point maybe because that one was still round and not square. But all the logs are basically dry stacked, dovetailed notches on the corners. The only nails that are holding the building together are wood dowels. And
so there are no nails?
No nails that hold the structure together. Everything is stacked. When you get to the top of the walls, every corner, so the top 4 corners, has about a 1-inch diameter wood dowel, about 12 inches long, and that pins the top log on the side and the top log on the front together. The rafters then go from the top log up to the very peak of the roof, and there's one wood dowel that holds the top of the rafters together. And then over the top of that was put the wood boards so that they could put the cedar shakes or wood shakes on top of the roof that we use composite shingles today. Amazing
to know what it took to build this home, and then as a builder yourself to watch that deconstruct and rebuild it. So let's talk about how this exists today. What made you the president of the Symmes Township Historical Society? Well, when it was originally found, so much stuff around here has been bulldozed under, has disappeared over the years, it just no longer exists. So when this was first uncovered, it was always my idea of how can this be preserved for future generations to come in and see. With this being in Symmes Township, I went to the Symmes Township Historical Society at the time. Here's what I've got. Would you like to be a part of this and do something with it? Yeah. And then the Historical Society took it on to make it their project to help preserve this structure and to get it moved and to get it rebuilt, which then I had become president of the Historical Society at that, somewhere along that point. Right. So the building was built in what year, remind me? The 1830s. 1830s. And then at what year was it moved?
It was disassembled 2004. It was stored for a few years, and then we had it rebuilt here on this site and had our opening dedication in 2012.
Wow, that's quite a long time in between there. How does something like that happen? Does a community come together to help restore? Or?
We had quite a bit of help from local organizations, local residents in the community. We also got a grant from the Ohio Cultural Commission.
Lovely.
That put money in so that we could have it reassembled and put back up to what you see today then.
And over $100,000 has been raised to?
Approximately $165,000 to put this structure back up the way you see it today.
And are you still accepting donations to keep the maintenance?
We're always accepting donations for the maintenance. We try to keep this open currently the first and third weekends of the month, April through October, to come in, visit, take a look around. Like I said, so it can be enjoyed by current and future generations. School groups come out, scout groups come out, and have picnics and different activities out here.
There's probably had to be some sort of, to keep the building up to code. What are some of the things that needed to be done to?
Back when the structure was originally built, there were no building codes. So you just built whatever you wanted to, and if that looked good, that's what you went with. One thing, when we were rebuilding the stairs, originally the stair system would have consisted of a ladder. It was climbed to the second floor. So
with a ladder.
Hope you weren't too tired at night because you had to make that final climb up the ladder to get to the sleeping area that night. During the reconstruction process, we actually had to build steps that, again, meet today's building code so that you could get up there to that. We've had to put some lighting in, some electric, again, just because back then they didn't have electric. They had lanterns, candles, things like that to see with. Today we've had to put in lighting so that people can see. There is a handicap ramp built around back, so it is handicap accessible to get into the first floor. And you can come in and view that and see some of the different displays, some of the different tools of the time, and just the construction itself of the structure.
When you walk into the building, it's kind of a lower door. You don't have to, well, I'm not that tall, but I did notice it was kind of close. Why do you think it was lower like that?
So, some people do. That's always when you're walking in. It's always duck, don't hit your head on the door jamb there. People are actually a little bit shorter. And as time goes on, people are getting taller. And back then with the short people, they didn't need the high doorways to walk through.
I guess so.
Quite a few people come in now and they take a look before they come walking in and go, wait a minute. And that's the first thing they notice when they come in. That is awful short.
Tell me, are the windows the same windows that were part of the structure?
The windows are original size and location. Some of them had been altered over the years. When we reconstructed it, though, we had them put back to original size. Now, the one thing that's neat about the windows is a lot of the glass in the window frames is a leaded glass. Today, when you look out a window, you see a nice clear picture when you look through. The leaded glass has air bubbles in it. It's a little bit wavy, kind of gives you a distorted look when you look through them. And that was just one of the, that's the way they made glass back then. It wasn't perfect like it is today.
Yeah. And here we are in this lovely park so people can walk on by and enjoy it. Do you use the space for anything else?
Mainly for educational purposes. People come in to see it. We do hold our historical society meeting here. But yeah, it's just open to the public to use and enjoy.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important to preserve buildings like this?
It gives us remembrance of a time of the way things used to be. We run around today, we think, okay, we're going home, we turn on the heat, we want to heat up something, throw it in the microwave, the food's in the refrigerator, everything's right there at our fingertips. Back then was a totally different time period. There weren't refrigerators, there weren't light switches. You didn't just go in and turn on the heat. You wanted heat, you had to go out and work. You had to cut the firewood, you had to keep the fire going. Yeah. You had to go hunting for your food in a lot of times. It was a totally different time period back then and a way of life versus what we have today. There wasn't a Kroger's on every corner. The hardware store wasn't right down the street. Everything, it took time to get things, and they had patience, and they were hardworking people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can tell because the structure can still exist today
Right.
of what the work was put into there.
Just even thinking of the structure. Today, like I said, we dismantled it with a crane. Okay, hook up a couple chains, lift it up, set it down. Back then, these trees were cut down by hand, no chainsaws, cut down with a handsaw. They were then squared up with an axe. They were drugged to the site with horses to wherever they needed to get it to, and then they were lifted up into place by hand with ropes, block and tackle.
2 stories.
2 stories. It was not bring in the crane, hook up the chain, and lift it up like it was reassembled. It was quite a bit different back then, work-wise, to build something.
And you can really feel that history when you see something like that.
Right.
That's amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to tell me about the Ross family log home?
The wood floors,
Oh,
first floor and also on the second floor. As time went on, as the house was updated, people cut holes in the floors, drilled holes for wiring, ran heating, so on and so forth. When we rebuilt the structure, though, none of that was put back in. The floors were pretty well shot. At that time period, a storm had come through and knocked down some trees in the park down the street. So to keep with the logs and wood coming from the area right here, we were able to get some logs. We had a portable sawmill come in, brought it in down to Camp Dennison, which is part of Symmes Township. Had the logs milled into boards, let them dry down there for a period of about 2.5 years. And that's the new floor that we've put in here. So it's all local trees and lumber from this area, kind of as close to as they did back then, milled down, and then we were still able to get the square head nails to fasten the floors down.
really?
So you'll notice the square head nails on the floors in there also.
So really trying to maintain the integrity of what would have been.
Right.
And so you waited 2.5 years to be able to redo.
It worked out because from the dismantling time to the reconstruction point to when we needed it, but again, the wood had to dry out. It was green, and then all the moisture had to dry out of it to the right content before we could even install it.
That is fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
So,
It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
yep, thank you.
Today I was with Mr. C.J. Carr, who is the president of the Symmes Township Historical Society. We are in Symmes Township, north of Cincinnati in Ohio. My name's Chrissy Morgan. This was History in Your Own Backyard. Remember, travel slowly and stop often.